Hey everyone, welcome back to more Flesh and Bad, and today we're going to be talking a little bit more about Zen, but first I wanted to kind of take a brief aside to talk about the Calling Memphis. We saw a very impressive Cindra deck from Brody's Burlock, and I wanted to kind of demonstrate a little bit of kind of like the unfairness of Cindra, like what she's supposed to be doing, and I guess how we're supposed to deal with that. Here I have basically a 4-card Cindra hand, and I've kind of represented Mask Momentum, so this is Mom right here. That's Mom, and that's Flick, right? Flick. Okay. So this is basically a kind of like the Cindra puzzle, if you will, right? You basically are presented with a 4-card hand. They have Mask of Momentum and Flick Knives, which they can basically use to kind of continue the Mom links, right? And I feel like most people have kind of encountered this at this point, but if you haven't, it's a very interesting thing. How do we efficiently block this? Normally Cindra, so I think a lot of Cindras are like more blue line, but the Cindra deck that we saw in the Calling is a very red line deck. So mostly just a bunch of 0 for 3 go agains, 0 for 4 go agains, and then occasionally kind of mixed in with like a 1 for 5 or like a couple other kind of like 1-cost cards to basically kind of like push over for lethal, right? And you can mainly use those 1-cost cards with like your chess piece, which will give you a bunch of like free resources, right? But the main puzzle for Cindra, right, is that you have to figure out how to block out the Mom triggers. And Flick Knives makes that incredibly annoying because with Flick, you basically have the opportunity to continue a Mask of Momentum chain without actually like hitting with an attack, which is very powerful. Let's kind of like talk through, I guess, some of the ways you can potentially block out a 4-card chain. So if we just take all 3 of these chains, right? If we take 1, 2, and 3, we get a Mom draw, which is not great. So normally in the past, what you've done against Mom is you're trying to defend on like Chain Link 2. So I'll put like a little shield here, right? So if you defend on Chain Link 2, what does Cindra normally do? Well, they use the flick on Chain Link 2. And that way they're now threatening that same snatch on Chain Link 3. So that doesn't work, right? You basically need to not just block out on Chain Link 2, you also have to block out on Chain Link 3, which is kind of rough, especially if like Chain Link 3 is like a 0 for 4 and Chain Link 2 is like a 0 for 3, right? So basically what we need to do is we either need to shut down this flick trigger to deny the Mom trigger, or we need to basically let them have it, or we need to figure out a way to also block on Chain Link 3. And this is like a pretty rough thing because a lot of decks are not geared to block like 3 or like sometimes it's even like 0 for 4 is 0 for 4, right? Which is pretty rough. So a lot of decks cannot block 0 for 4 twice. It has to be like maybe 0 for 3 on the first link, 0 for 4 on the second link, or something like that. But the blocking puzzle is like very tough, right? Because if you basically let them hit, you're basically giving them free draw, which in most cases you're giving them like +3 value, which is pretty rough. This is the puzzle I kind of want to solve to at least try to gear our Zen deck to be able to hose Cindras if they try to kind of go for the strat. So we need to basically gear our Zen deck to always be able to block like if it's 0 for 3, and we also have like Pouncing Paws to use that if they want to go for like a 0 for 4. And then we also need like a 0 for 4 block or like a 0 for 5 or like something on Chain Link 30 to also shut that down. Because fortunately they only get like 1 flick trigger. All right, I did also want to mention that sometimes it might honestly be okay to like block out on like Chain Link 1 if you do like that. The only problem with that is that then they're basically like threatening another 3 chain links. So like depending on like what their 4-card hand is, like the chain ender is oftentimes like more powerful than the chain starter. So like Lava Burst, for instance. So a lot of this time that this 4th chain link is coming in for 4 or like 4 plus, right? So we'll say like 4 plus right here. If it's coming in for 4 plus, that makes blocking a lot more difficult, and they also potentially get to like draw a card, keep an arsenal, which is quite rough. So I'm not as big a fan as blocking on Chain Link 1. Also, like what they can do is they can basically like flick on Chain Link 1 if they really want to, and then draw on like Chain Link 3, which is pretty rough. So no matter what, you're basically having, if you want to deny Mom triggers, you have to block on both Chain Link 1 and like Chain Link 2 or 3. Like you need to block like 1 or 2, or you need to block, and then you pretty much like always need to block 3. So that's kind of like the Cindra puzzle. I think that there is maybe some merit to like blocking 1, especially if it's like a 0 for 3. So if like this is a 0 for 3, blocking 1 might be okay to like force a flick out. and then you can maybe try to block something else. But this is the fundamental like Cinder puzzle, right? And why I think that she performs so well at the calling is because if you can get your opponent to like make mistakes and like not play around mom triggers or just let them through, then you're basically gonna like try to steamroll your opponent with just head jabs and like 0 for 4s, which is really really solid. So I kind of wanted to illustrate like why this Cinder deck I think performs so well and what we can basically do about it. So I want to kind of talk through the changes that I made to the Zen deck and then hopefully kind of try to illustrate like my thought process with those. So let's get into the Zen decks for today. So I have the Cinder board pulled up just so we can kind of talk about it. And what I've added a couple of concessions to the board. So I don't like Shelter from the Storm, but I think it's a very, very powerful tool in that matchup because you can basically use it to deny like the Flick trigger and then also get some additional value out of that. So if you look in like block 3 and then you're basically always having to give 2 cards if you want to deny mass triggers. So this I think is like pretty solid, at least letting you kind of like control the flow of like the game and basically just letting you like control like Flick knives, which is very hard to interact with normally. Then I've also added, so Tiger Eye Reflex has actually been kind of impressing me. It's a little bit bad because it forces you to be kind of more like it forces you into a more reactive stance as a pro instead of like a proactive stance. So if your opponent just like blocks out and like leaves you with a 4 card hand, a lot of times you aren't able to use that, which is why like E-Strike is very, very important in this specific build. Like I don't think you ever cut E-Strike when you're running like Tiger Eyes and stuff because it's just a very, very powerful tool for letting you like filter these out of your hand and like get them out of your deck. So these are kind of like the I think core strategy into Cindra. I've also had just like a random sync blow just because I think that having another 0 for 4 block is pretty good into her. And we're also playing the wax on wax off package, which is very solid at stopping like mom triggers. Just very very good at letting you kind of like slow Cindra down and prevent her from drawing cards. So I've been liking the wax on wax off stuff a lot. The biggest problem is that Cindra will eventually like just start blocking you out if they see that you're on like this more defensive package. But that's why we're running, I think, like a little bit over like the normal amount of blues to try to kind of compensate for that. So basically, our main plan is to try to kind of like we want to try to deny mom triggers as much as possible when it makes sense. So if we can stop them early from like steamrolling, I think it's very very good for us, and we have a lot of tools basically to kind of deal with that matchup. We're also just running a lot of 3 blocks, so that makes blocking a lot easier because a lot of their stuffs are head jabs. Like they do have a decent number of like 0 for 4s, but blocking out the head jabs is also very important. So if you can block 3 on a head jab and kind of be still in a fine spot, you're doing pretty well. Yeah, so that's kind of like the main Cinder board. I've made a couple kind of like different changes. I want to try to test out Biting Breeze today as well. Biting Breeze, I think, has been kind of replaced by Harmony Hunt in recent memory, but I think that if we're going to like lower cards and like having to block a lot more disruption, Biting Breeze gets a lot better because you can use it to do 2 card transcends. I think I've also like upped the blue pouncing key and like gone down like a cosmic main deck. So I'm kind of curious to see how CYB new kind of fares in this meta. I'm almost certain that she probably gets hosed pretty bad by Cindra, especially if you have a bunch of no blocks in your deck. It seems like new might have a bit of a rough time into like Cindra and like these more aggressive strategies that we're kind of seeing. So I'm kind of going down on a cosmic to kind of hedge against that. I think having 1 cosmic in the board is like safety valve is kind of okay, but I can't remember the last time where I've like felt the need to have 2 cosmics, especially into new. Like I think in news are getting a lot more aggressive as opposed to like CYB heavy, at least from what I've seen. But the one CYB, the one Cosmic is kind of try to deal with that. And again, Cosmic is not going to win a lot of your CYB games. Like a lot of your CYB games, you can basically just win without the Cosmic. So I think it's good at like one of, but again, it's not like you can use it as your strategy, but a lot of good CYB new players will like just prevent you from using this anyway. So I don't think it's worth the sideboard space, basically. Those I think are the main changes for today. I wanted to kind of just talk through my Cindra strategy because I think that that is going to be a very popular deck, especially after Brody's kind of dominant performance with that deck. Yeah, but with that, we'll go ahead and get into some games. All right, we've got a perfect opportunity to test out our Cindra build. Everything else go first. I'm not entirely sure which one's better. I feel like I'd almost rather go second, but you're ending up leaking like 4 or 5 damage going second anyways. So it doesn't feel great to go second regardless. But anyways, we'll go ahead and just run our Cindra package. I think we already kind of talked about it. All right, hand is a little bit awkward to start out, but we can maybe just filter here. So you can like pitch wins, play Breed Anger. I think there's also maybe some merit to like maybe pitching Wax Off and then like sending wins, pre-flipping the chi, and then passing back to them or something. but I don't know. That seems kind of whatever. We do normally have Passover, which is pretty good against kunais, but finding the opportunity to do that is sometimes a little bit difficult. And I think we're going to just go ahead and arsenal the Passover here. I would find Passover plus drop, which is going to be pretty solid against kunais, maybe. So it looks like from what I've seen there on... This kind of looks more like the red line build to me, but it's definitely hard to kind of tell the difference sometimes. I do want to kind of talk about our hand real quick. So we do have Wax Off as potentially a Transcend starter. They're starting off with a Head Jab. So I guess the question is here, do we have the means to double block? So we can block a 0 for 3 and a 0 for 4, but we cannot block a... It's kind of awkward. So I think we're supposed to let this hit and then just hope they don't have 0 for 4s at chain links 2 and 3. Because if they have a 0 for 3 at chain link at either chain link 2 or chain link 3, we're in a pretty good spot. We could also like pass over, but we have to get rid of the wind chakra. So there's a couple awkward things about this, but I think we're probably in an okay spot. All right, they're going to follow up with Brand. So we're going to go ahead and try to block chain link 2. I expect them to kind of flick the dagger at me. Okay, they do not want to flick the dagger. It's kind of interesting. Oh, they're going to go for Wrath. Okay. It's a little bit scary. But notably, they're not threatening Mask by doing this. So I'm kind of curious if they're going to try to go for like a kunai recursion, in which case we could probably blow them out with like the drop plus Passover. We don't have to worry about mom triggers anymore, so this is basically just raw damage at this point. I feel like they should flick at some point, though. Right? Like, they pretty much have to, I feel like. Or they're, like, losing out on value if they don't. Huh. Alright, now they flick. So, we're losing out on 1 value if we don't drop in the ocean right now. I think that they're going to go for a recursion, in which case we can blow them out with Passover. I think getting rid of one of the daggers is quite strong. We are obviously losing out on 1 value. Alright, so we'll go ahead and now drop plus Passover. Target the kunai. Gain a resource, and now they're off both kunais, which is really good. Alright, here we have the opportunity to do a chase line and then finish on a Kasaya, which is pretty solid. Could also just IP the Chi if they want to try to block this out. But very happy to see that Passover that early. Notably, it doesn't hose them like that bad because this build is a lot less reliant on daggers. But I think it's still like good value to just get one of the daggers out of the way, especially against cards like Blood Runs Deep. And if they're going to keep a 4-card hand here, I'm just going to Zen State them. Okay, sure, we'll go for it. All right, we have the Wax On, Wax Off combo as well, if we so desire. We might honestly not even go for that, depending on what they do. All right, so Chain Link 1, we don't have to block. Notably, because we have Zen State, their Flick Knives also gets significantly worse. So we do have Chi. I think we might just use this Wax On and then keep the Wax Off in Arsenal, because we still have 3 other Wax Ons in the deck. So it's not like imperative that we make a second Zen State here. So let's go ahead and just Wax On this, just to deny the second Chain Link. Notably, they don't even have daggers, so they can't push through Mask. So we're going to take a little bit of damage here, but we should be fine. They're going to pitch the Blood Run Steep to get their 1 kunai back, which is pretty weak, but maybe it's the best they can do. And then I think we'll just go for our levels. So put a Chase back in the deck. Activate Zen. Notably, we are losing out our Kasaya here, which is kind of weird. So we could actually do buff go on levels because we already have an arsenal, and then just get a swipe. It's probably the best, or like it's probably the most efficient thing we could be doing, right? So do buff go. All right, seems like they're maybe priced into just blocking out this turn. We're still going to be leaking some damage, so I think that's fine. We are at a little bit of a risk for bricking, but hopefully we can use our Pouncing Paws to kind of alleviate that. All right, seems like they're going to just give us the rest of their hand. Sure. Makes sense through the Zen state. But if you get Cindra to block, like, you're in a pretty good spot. All right, and we're just drawing straight fire. Okay. So notably, we don't get Kasai resources, which is a little bit unfortunate. But I think it's still right to just go for the levels here. We'd have to pitch the Pouncing Key to do it, but it seems fine still. All right. We're probably going to do Draw-Go and just get Chase the Tail and hope we draw into a blue. If we draw into a red, it's not the end of the world because we can just pitch it to Chase. All right, we'll do Draw-Go. All right, we draw blue, which is very, very good. And how do we want to distribute our Shuko here? So we probably want to play 2 tigers and then chase buff the tiger with Kakara. So we should start with Kakara now, I think, right? I think this distributes it the best. Because we go 2-2, 2-2, chase, and then 4. I think that makes them the hardest. I think it's like slightly the hardest to block, right? Yeah, it definitely seems like the Brody deck because I think that they Brody was only on like 2 yellow brand with Cinder Claws or whatever. Right, so we want to do a second tiger here. Just so we get the Shuko buff on the 2 attack. And then we'll do chase plus another tiger. So notably, we've denied every single mass trigger this game, which is, I think, very important in this matchup. There are some opportunities where you basically just don't even need to. Like, if you're so far ahead where the mass trigger doesn't matter, that's when you can start ignoring it. But I think early on, like, giving them free 0 for 4s and 0 for 3s is, like, not where you want to be because it feels like it can snowball pretty bad. All right, but we're up, I think, 12 points here. Definitely still losable from this position, though. All right, so notably they do not have a 4-card hand, which is also kind of like a weakness of the strategy. So since they don't have a 4-card hand, we can actually just, like, there's no way that they can force through the chain link, especially if we just block like the very last thing that they do. So I think that's what our plan is going to be. We might want to try to use Traverse this turn, but I think there's no reason to block the first chain link as per usual. All right, so they're going to follow up with Hot. So we could go for Traverse plus Pouncing Paws block here, but then they're just like setting us up for the third thing. I think they're going to try to push through a Mass Trigger. If they don't push through a Mass Trigger, I think we're still in a fine spot. All right, they want to flick here. That's A-okay with me. All right, gain a resource, so they maybe have a 1 cost, which we can probably pretty efficiently block with like Traverse plus Winds. If it's the 1 for 7, it gets a little bit more awkward, but I think we've kind of set ourselves up here to block this pretty efficiently. All right, so let's go ahead and block with, I think, Traverse, and then what else do we want to block with? I just block with a Harmony, something like this. Seems kind of reasonable. We get like 100 wins and then bottom a Tiger to E-Strike, but then the Winds of Eternity gets awkward. I think it's probably something like this. Maybe we're just pitching Winds of Eternity or something. Or maybe we're bottoming it to E-Strike. I'm not entirely sure. All right, recur the dagger with Cindra. Sure. All right, and then we're just going to try to send a bit of damage at them. Can notably get chase the tail if we want to, but then we're setting ourselves up to brick with Pouncing Paws pretty bad. So I think I'm just going to get like a breed here just so it's kind of awkward for them to try to block. I want to be very conservative with my Pouncing Paws, especially when we're on a more react-heavy package, just because I think that the way we lose this game is if we like just send 7 on their turn and they're able to block, and then they can vomit out their hand against us. All right, we'll finish up with an E-Strike for buff, which will demand at least armor or a card from them. But we have not given them a single mass draw, which is, I think, very, very important. All right, we're going to get the Blood Splatter Vest, and then, oh yeah, they can block more if they want to. We should probably they need to give us at least 3 blocks. So they're going to give us the Mask, which has not done anything up until this point, which is very, very good. And then they're also going to give us the Dragonflight Path, which it's not a big deal because it's just battle worn. But we're up 20 points, which I think is very, very good. All right. Oath of Loyalty. They have a 4-card hand, so notably, or actually, sorry. So the 4-card hand would matter, but we just saw them block with Mask of Momentum, so we're not under a threat of drawing or a threat of them drawing. So I think what we can do with this hand is probably just like sink below if they have like weird on hit that we want to deal with, and then probably just kill them from there. We are gonna probably drop to like 8 or so, maybe, but we should be in a pretty fine spot here. All right, another display. Again, there's no real reason for us to block this. Could just block the last thing they're doing. I might honestly just block with like Pouncing Paws and Wax Off just to get it out of our arsenal, because me arsenaling Sinkful is like a little bit stronger. Or we can arsenal the other Wax Off too. All right, and they're going to finish with a Brand. Sure. So we don't care about the on-hit because the mask's gone. We go to 8, which is exactly what I predicted, and then we can do like Kakara, 100 Winds, Grain, get like a Key Unleashed. Oh no, we can't get a Key Unleashed. We can get like a 1 cost. And then set ourselves up with the Sinkin Arsenal. So we should be basically getting them to block out at this point. All right, they'll flick the dagger at us. So we actually go down a little bit lower. We go to 7 here. But we still have a lot of arm. We're functionally at like 9, right? Okay. Let's go ahead and lead off with Kakara. So we're basically pricing them. I think they're priced into basically blocking out with their entire hand and then also like a piece of armor. Because they have to block 3 here, or at least 2 here. We could actually just try to kill him with the Grain if we wanted to. Maybe we'll try to kill him with the Grain on the 100 Winds, though. I don't know, it feels greedy if they have like a shelter or whatever. Alright, we'll go for the kill here. Alright, good game, Slimy Bob. Alright, so let's take a look at the deck and see if they're on the Brody list. I think that is probably the most kind of popular. I think they are on the Brody list. I don't know if Hunt the Hunter was in that list, though. That's the only card that immediately stands out. I think the rest of it looks pretty much like identical. Just basically 2 yellow Brand with Cinder Claws as the only pitch in the deck. And then like Shelter. Yeah, this kind of looks similar. I don't know. I haven't memorized the deck list, but this looks like pretty close to it if it's not the exact same deck list. So yeah, that's kind of, I wanted to kind of demonstrate how you can beat that deck list. I do think that this deck list is like very, very strong, and I wouldn't go as far as to say that Zen is necessarily favored into this build. But I think I do have at least a pretty good strategy for trying to deal with it. So yeah, with that, I hope that was a good demonstration. And yeah, let's see if we can get another. I did also want to try out this Dio strat. So I think this is actually a player I've played against before. I'm curious to see if they are heads up and know the strat that I'm going to employ against them. So my plan is to actually go back to kind of like the wax on, wax off strategy and basically just cut down on a bunch of the no blocks in the deck and basically try to like just disrupt them and stuff. But I think if they're prudent, they're going to go up on cards. Okay, no, they're going to stay at a clean 60. Okie doke. So, yep, our plan for this matchup is to basically try to block out everything they're doing and fatigue them. I want to see if this works. I've had pretty good success doing it so far. All right, so 0 to 60 coming in. I think we're just going to probably try to cover this with Sync. And let's sync the wax off for now, just because it's kind of below rate, especially if they're going to attack into us on turn 1. We also have the levels set up, which is pretty good. All right, and I think we'll just go for it. Actually, the question is, do we want to end on levels? That might be better. Ending on levels is pretty good. I'm wondering if that's actually like a better thing to be doing here. I think it might be. Let's go ahead and start with the Harmony. I've been wanting to try to end on levels a little bit more. Okay, just nasty hit off the top. Zen continues to be disgusting as usual. This is actually like the most disgusting thing I think I've ever seen. All right, Rising Sun, gain a resource, bottom whatever the fuck we draw. Doesn't matter. And then let's go ahead and grab our Aspect. We get to end on levels, which is also disgusting. This is like basically perfect. Yeah, I don't think I could ask for more if I had like a wish list, right? This is basically like the perfect turn one, I think. All right, ending on levels, very, very strong. You know, we've sent 20 damage at them and then drawn a card, basically. So very disgusting turn one. I do think I do think that we can maybe potentially just out aggro them from this point, especially with this disgusting draw. But I think that normally my plan into Dio is if they're doing the null time zone thing is to try to basically block out. All right, so we're coming in with a boom grenade. It's only a yellow boom grenade, and they already played off the top. They have 2 action points at this point. So we could get null time zoned. I want to be a little bit careful about that. So we do have like a really good hand that could probably kill them, but my concern is null time zone is the biggest thing. Could risk it, but I don't know. It feels pretty safe to also just block out. I'm going to go for the risk, I guess. I do think it maybe is a little bit greedy. All right, coming in with the zipper hit. I think we'll say no blocks on the zipper hit as well. All right, blue 0 to 60. They have 1 card in hand. So are we banking on this not being a null time zone? If it is a null time zone at the very end of this, we get hosed like irreparably bad. But maybe it's still fine. All right, it's not a null time zone, but it's okay. All right, so let's show them everything but levels. So they can take a blue out of her hand, but that's not the end of the world. They either take a blue or a mauling key. All right, they take a blue. Makes sense. I do think we opened ourselves up a little bit there to just getting blown out by null time zone. It's maybe concerning. Like maybe we weren't supposed to even just like go for that. All right, let's go ahead and start off with our levels. I don't think we want to pop our pouncing paws in this matchup, so I think I'm maybe okay just getting like a 1 cost here. Also get a 0 cost and then try to draw off levels. I think that's also reasonable. Let's go for the levels draw, I guess. Maybe we draw into a blue and then we can sneak in like Kakara plus something. All right, we draw a sync, which is not bad either. All right, let's start. Where do we want to put the Shuko trigger? I guess we want to put it on Tiger Swipe, so we should start with this. I don't know if we're going to be able to Kakara this turn, but that's maybe okay. Again, our plan into this matchup was to try to be like a lot more defensive, but if we're just given like the nut draw, I think we should probably just take it and try to race. Notably, we have cut 3 chi from our deck, so like it's pretty likely that the rest of our turn is going to be pretty mid. Right, they're going to play out a boom grenade on our turn. Sure. Interesting. All right, let's give them a biting breeze so that at least maybe we take an adaptive plating out of them. Because this is threatening like basically +1 damage, basically. All right, if we take adaptive, I'm kind of happy with that. All right, finish on the mauling. I wonder if buffing on levels was actually better there. It might have been. All right, let's go ahead and arsenal our sync here. All right, we have the wax on, wax off, which is pretty solid. It might not matter though. And we can still just do it. Blocks 5 on this. Our hand afterwards is a little bit lackluster, but we can probably just outvalue them from here, especially through like 2 turns of Zen state. It's probably good enough. They did have a backup protocol for what it's worth. All right, hitting us with a max velocity, developing a spark of genius. Okay. I'm kind of fine just blocking what they're doing here, by the way. They're banishing a lot of cards. I think it's basically about picking our spot here. All right, drawing off Cerebellum. Backup protocol. All right, I don't know what's going on here, but maybe they got a plan. Oh wait, sorry. Did I pass? Wait, sorry. What happened there? All right, I think I passed it quickly. Let's go ahead and just block. I'm pretty sure we can just block like this and just deny the boom grenade value. They can shoot us with the gun once, but I don't think we care. I don't really care about using the pouncing boss here. Like on our turn, we're basically just sending 3 damage at them, which they're incentivized to block. So no real reason to kind of send it there. They get us for 2 damage, but again, not the end of the world. All right, and then on our turn, we'll just pass. Their items go away. We might be looking to maybe use our pouncing paws this turn. Okay, especially if they're going to T-bone us. I guess we are very incentivized to use them. So we've seen 2 red boom grenades gone, a yellow boom grenade gone. They're going to run out of cards if we just block. 1 cerebellum gone as well. Part of me wants to kind of filter here. Maybe try to find a better thing than like the blue key unleashed. And we could also just like very easily just block out and then play out like the pouncing and stuff. Maybe it's fine to just sit on sink below. Like we're not really at risk of dying here, it feels like. So let's start trying to strip some cards out of their hands. Because I think we're presenting enough damage where they have to give us at least 1 or 2 cards. And if we can put Dio on low cards, cards like Max V get a lot worse. They've also got their last charge of Cerebellum, so that's going away on their turn. I'm curious to see if our opponent is actually on the null time zone. It might not be. For what it's worth, I think that card does kind of hose this matchup, and it's kind of why I wanted to maybe show this matchup off. Down to 3 cards. Draw another Transcend card, which is pretty good, especially when we have a Tiger Eye. Yeah, so we definitely want to block the Tiger Eye this turn. Might as well just do it here. All right, so they're going to finish on a Spark. All right, they get Cerebellum, which they're going to crank. They draw a card, and then they can also potentially draw another card off Cerebellum. Okay, but they don't have action points, so kind of interesting. All right, let's go ahead and send in a Tiger. Then we can follow up with Pouncing Key, Preserve, and then basically just send a ton of damage at them. Probably going to get something that has Go again so that we can just bottom a Tiger to E-Strike. Let's put a Levels back in the deck. Sounds fun. Then we'll get what here? Don't think it matters. Then we cut the Red Hunter Winds. Maybe there isn't actually anything to get that naturally gets going in. Maybe it's just Hunter Winds. Could also just like pitch the E-Strike to Kakara. I think it's also reasonable. Do like 2-1-4. Should be pretty annoying to block. So we put them off cards. We're at a 20-point lead. Things are looking pretty good. Like we didn't even have to basically rely on our plan here. We kind of just drew the nuts. All right, Symbiosis shot. I think we will just go ahead and cash in our free block. We're probably just going to Kakara plus CNC in our turn. All right, and we've got them in the Kakara lock functionally. Send out the CNC. All right, and then they will gun us. We can let's block with Tiger Eye though. Then do Kakara, Tiger, E-Strike, which should, I think that should kill. Unless they have like a weird 4 block somewhere. All right, and then we will buff. All right, so that Dio game didn't really illustrate what I wanted to illustrate, which is that you can just like block out against her, and like if they're not prepared for it, they can kind of just kill themselves. I do think like against like some Dio players will probably like just overboard into Zen if this becomes like the predominant strategy, but you can just like kind of block out into Dio. But in that game, I think we kind of just drew the nuts, so we might as well just like capitalize on it. All right, we basically drew like levels, like disgusting levels hands. So I think that kind of won us the game more so than the blocking strategy, but we were basically just able to completely outvalue them this game, which is pretty solid. All right, so I think that's probably going to wrap it up for today. So thank you all for watching. Continuing to work on some kind of new strategies for the Zen list and just kind of iterating on some cards. I think the Biting Breezes have been pretty all right. Zero cost always nice. Harmony Hunts have been a little bit awkward because I feel like we're going into a little bit more of like a blocky kind of meta. Like the Harmony Hunts, I think, shine when you're basically just trying to no block, like just trying to like outvalue your opponent, which I don't think that Zen can do as much anymore. But like at least we have kind of like this more flexible mid range plan, which like the Tiger Eye Reflexes, I think, kind of replaced the Harmony Hunts in terms of Tiger generation and also just being a pretty solid block card. So if you have any ideas for Zen list, let me know. And thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all next time.